This is AFKast, the video game podcast. And here's your host, Malcolm Sheaver.
Have you ever wanted to teleport out of a sticky situation in a multiplayer match? Maybe teleport up to a higher ground so that way you can get a better advantage on the enemy team? What about being able to spot really good items through walls and get there before the enemy or your team can get to those loot items? What about being able to pick up loot from 70 meters away and instantly have access to it to use against your foes? This week on AFKast, we will be talking about Apex Legends Season 5, Fortune's Favor. So first we're going to talk about the new legend, which is Loba. So Loba is the brand new Apex character, and she has, her tactical, ultimate, and passive, just like every other one, and her passive ability is Eye for Quality. So this allows her to be able to see epic and legendary loot through walls, and she actually has the ability to ping those items through the walls as well. And the range of that is the same as her ultimate, which I will explain in a second. But her tactical ability is called Burglar's Best Friend. So she has this thing called a jump drive on her arm. It looks like a bracelet. She wears it as a bracelet. And essentially, she takes it off her wrist, she throws it, and you teleport to the location it lands. Now, you are able to, while it's in the air being thrown, you can actually press whatever your trigger button is, so left click or right trigger, and it'll instantly make the teleportation device go straight down to the ground, which makes it very easy to get on top of rooftops quickly, or even just to hide or reach places in general. Or even if you threw it too far, you can stop somewhere quickly. Or if someone realized kind of where you're throwing your bracelet and they start looking to where you're going to go, you can drop it down and have it be behind them. But honestly, when's that ever going to happen? But yeah, so her ultimate ability is the Black Market Boutique. So essentially, you place down this spear or lance, or I don't really know what to call it, honestly, staff of some kind that Loba carries with her onto the ground. And it essentially creates it's quite literally what it says. It's a black market. And so when you enter it, you're able to pick up any item that is within the same radius as your passive ability. And essentially, you can pick up an entire stack of an item. So whether that is just one throwable, so like an arc star, or picking up one weapon, or you can pick up a stack of 60 of heavy ammo, even if there's like 115 or something like that inside of the Black Market Boutique. You can also only pick up I don't really know any other good examples for this, but anyway, you're able to pick up 2 stacks in total, whether that is 1 or 60, or however much any other item might stack. I guess it's like 20 for sniper ammo as well. But anyway, the thing that is interesting about Loba is just her playstyle. Her playstyle is a lot more passive, yet also aggressive than any other legend in the game, because she doesn't you can't really play her just passively or just aggressively. Take Bloodhound for example. Bloodhound is definitely not a passive player. You definitely have to play Bloodhound very aggressively. Pathfinder, for an instance, you can play either very aggressively or very defensively, which now he's kind of been made more defensively, but I'll talk about that later. But Loba, you kind of have to play as both. You can't play him as either defender or attacker. So ones that are quite literally labeled as defenders, so Caustic or Watson, who are able to place down traps. And then you've also got people like Mirage, who can be attack or defense. Once again, it's very universal for most, if not one-sided. But with Loba, you have to play both, because her Black Market Boutique and her Eye for Quality allows you to stay behind because you don't really have the abilities to go into a fight. So that part of it is very passive, but at the same time, you can get a lot of advantages a lot quicker with her teleportation ability, especially since it takes 35 seconds to cool down, and if you have the fast charge helmet, it takes 23 seconds. And you basically get it back at any moment that you actually need, because usually when you use her jump drive, or her burglar's best friend, whatever you want to call it, you're usually not going to use it for about 30 seconds. So it works almost perfectly for having this ability, because it either takes longer for people to get to where you are, or in general, it's just kind of, I mean, it would be really OP if it was even 30 seconds instead of 35 seconds, because this is instant teleportation we're talking about. And one thing I will have to talk about with the teleportation is that if an enemy melees you, then like right as you teleport, then they'll actually teleport with you, which is very, very weird. But the enemy won't actually take damage when they teleport with you. It's kind of just a hit and teleport, but then you won't actually do any melee damage to them, which is kind of weird. But the thing I don't like about that is that teammates cannot do it. I don't understand how that is the case. I guess because there's no actual hit registration when it comes to teammates and melee. So the game probably just perceives it as them not hitting them, but it would be really nice if you could teleport with Loba. And maybe you can, but my friends and I tried it in the training facility, and we weren't able to do it on multiple tries. So we're pretty sure you can't, but if you can, then let me know. It's just very unlikely for you to try and do so. Because, yeah, we had multiple people try it, multiple occasions, and with us being enemies, it worked perfectly, but with us being teammates, we never got it off. So I don't know what the case of that is. I really hope that they introduce the feature that teammates could actually teleport with Loba, because one, that would make her stronger, because in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, she's not as strong as most legends. I think everyone thinks that she's a lot stronger after playing her for a little bit than when they first saw her abilities. But at the moment, I think it would make her just enough to be on the level with every other legend if teammates could teleport with her. Because people could start utilizing that a lot. Like if you're starting to push on an enemy team, instead of a Loba being up on a high rooftop like instantly, and either she gets screwed over very quickly or your teammates get screwed over very quickly because they're on the ground or you're alone up at the top, immediately you'll have the full team up at the top, and that could still mean instant doom for the entire team. But at least it would be less likely for that to happen. And Loba is kind of a character that you have to play thoroughly to actually get good with. She's not a very good... it's kind of like the difficulty ratings in Titanfall 2 with the different Titans. Loba would definitely be the hardest one, because she has a very high skill floor, but also a pretty high skill ceiling as well. Although they are fairly close to each other, in my opinion. But yeah, so she's an interesting character to play. You can use her in a lot of situations, but the main case is just to get to a higher playing ground or to get up to people quickly, because her teleportation is very obvious. It's very easy to hear. It's very easy to see. Like if you think of Wraith's Void ability, then if you like amplify the streak that you can see when she's in the void by, I don't really know how much, like maybe 3 times, basically it's perfectly visible. It looks like a jump trail when you're throwing it. So it's very easy to identify, and it takes a second for you to actually do an animation to put it back on your arm. So you have to play this very smartly when you use it. So you either have to use it in a moment where people won't be able to get to you if they do see it, or in a moment where people just won't see it at all. And the same thing goes for the Black Market Boutique, because obviously it takes a second to, 1, for it to activate, and 2, for you to actually get the loot you want out of it. And the thing about the Black Market Boutique is that it lets out a huge pulse when it goes off, because it shows the radius, like basically by creating a giant sphere around it. And it's not visible after you do that, but 1, it is obvious if you're not even near it as a player, because you'll see loot floating. And another thing is that on the map, you can see it in that radius as well. But if people see you set off a Black Market Boutique, it is very obvious. They'll know where the center of it came from if they, I guess, know geometry at all. So she's a dangerous person to play, but if you can figure out how to play her right and in the right situations, she's really good. Like in a moment of crisis where you might have just finished off a team, yet another team is coming after you, and you don't really have time to go out and loot, or you don't have the accessibility to go out in the open to loot, you can throw down her Black Market Boutique, and it's really good for collecting the certain loot items that you want off of the ground. Now, it does take a second for you to actually pick everything up. It takes I think it is quite literally a second to hold down whatever button it is, for whatever console you're playing, to actually pick up the item. And luckily, it's like picking it up off the ground. So if it's armor, it automatically puts it on you. If it's an attachment, it'll automatically put it on your weapon. So it's not different in any way like that. You also have the ability that if your inventory is full, that you can switch it out with something in your inventory, and you don't have to exit out of it, dump something out of your inventory, and then go back into it. I will say, though, she is very team-oriented. I think she would be good as solo, but one problem with her Black Market Boutique is that people will instantly take items, and so it's really good to talk through what you need, and kind of allow your teammates to figure out whether it's more important for them to have whatever the loot is or for you to have it, especially in a team scenario where 2 people might have their blue armor full, but you have your blue armor completely destroyed, and instead of them saving the blue armor for you, or saving whatever purple armor or whatever is in the Black Market Boutique for you, instead they take it immediately, then you get screwed over as soon as people push up, because you might not be able to pick up their blue armor immediately. That can raise some issues. But most of the time I feel like that wouldn't happen as much unless you're playing her every single game. But also it's really helpful for you to know as a teammate where you're teleporting off to as a Loba, because otherwise you can completely disappear away from the team and screw over your teammates, or the Loba screws over herself. So it's that can really go for any legend. You can really say that kind of stuff for any legend, that they're really team oriented, because this is a very team oriented game. But in my opinion, Loba is just a little bit more on the team side than she is on the solo side. Once again, bringing Bloodhound in, Bloodhound is very solo-esque. He's very solo play style. And I guess a lot of them kind of are, but yeah. Anyway, before I keep rambling on about Loba, they also did a big map update for Kings Canyon. And the thing that kind of annoys me is that I wanted to wait to play, or to make this episode for when World's Edge came out, but then I realized that it's 2 weeks until it comes out after release. So we still have about another week until it's able to release, a week and a couple days. Actually, I think it might be exactly a week. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember when it came out. But one reason that's annoying is because I wanted to let you know how good Loba would be on that map. Because I feel like she would be a very interesting character to play in the city environments, either the Fractured City or inside of the Skyhook City. One, because you're able to throw her teleportation device through windows, which can make it for very interesting fights in the city landscape where there are multiple floors to a lot of the buildings. Not to mention that you can throw her thing pretty high, so you can get to a lot bigger advantage points in most of the buildings in World's Edge than you would be able to in King's Canyon. But the reason that they did make it 2 weeks only in Kings Canyon is because Skulltown and Thunderdome are completely gone. Basically, the map looks like it has crumbled, and the water and the ocean has kind of taken that spot. And the reason for this is you'll have to watch the trailer for the actual season in order to understand why it's gone. But basically, a massive explosion took out that entire area. Because there was some secret underground lab below the surface. But there, instead of there being Thunderdome and Skulltown, there is a little facility called Salvage, which basically is a giant crane holding the skull from Skulltown. And you can actually find one item of loot in Skulltown, and we've seen anywhere from a single set of shield cells to golden armor. So I have no idea what that tier of armor or like what that tier of loot is supposed to be, or if it's just a completely open, like there's this equal chance for everything in the game. But Salvage itself is, I don't want to say it's small, but it's enough for one team to loot fairly quickly. But it has some fairly good loot to it as well. And then a couple other places that you have is Capacitor, and then which is a huge area. It's right next to where the Sing Labs was or is. It's right next to that. It's a little bit west of that, and there's actually a tunnel going from right next to the portal in Sing Labs to Capacitor. And Capacitor has a lot of these new things called charge towers. And essentially the charge towers take about, I think it's like 5 seconds for them to activate. And once you activate them, everyone who's standing within a certain radius actually gets their ultimate instantly. Which makes this really powerful for lifelines if they're able to claim the place. And we have done that a couple of times where we have a lifeline and we go there. But only problem is that since it's a really big area with some really good loot, a lot of people like to drop Capacitor. So it's kind of a, I don't want to say it's luck of the draw, but it's one of the more challenging places to go, kind of like Skulltown used to be. And then there's one other place called the Rig, which is a new extension to, I can't remember what it's called. I think it was Relay is what it was called. It was basically the area that's north of Swamp. And essentially, the Rig will, it's a fairly big area as well. I think it's kind of trying to make up for what is missing at Thunderdome and Skulltown in terms of map size. Because the what used to be the giant square there inside of that area is now completely gone and is now basically an entrance to this new area, which also has a charge tower, and it's got some fairly good loot. It's got a lot of loot there, too. There's a lot of buildings. There is kind of a main platform in the center of the area, and it's actually very fun to fight there. But one problem is that it's in the very corner of the map. And then not to mention that you're surrounded by areas like Capacitor, Artillery, and Swamp, which are fairly common areas for squads to go to. So it's also a fairly dangerous place. Actually, pretty much all the new places are fairly dangerous because Salvage is basically in the middle of the map. Especially with it being kind of, I don't want to say it's like just outside of, what's it called, water treatment, but at the same time it kind of is. It's basically on the east side of where the mountains used to be on the east side of Skulltown is kind of where Salvage is. And it's, all of them are good places to go, but all of them are fairly dangerous because all of them are also very good places to go. I'd say the Salvage isn't as worth it as the other two are, Capacitor and the Rig, mainly because it just doesn't have a great amount of loot. Not to mention, at least from my experience, not a lot of people go rig. I've had about a 50-50 experience with people going there, whereas most places you have about a 75% chance to like 85% chance of people dropping with you. So yeah, and I don't know if that's just because that area up there has kind of always been ignored, but that's my opinion at least. And then a couple other places where they added charge towers. They added charge towers at the area that used to be called Farm. I think, yeah, they added one just outside of, I can't remember the place now. That's basically on the far west of the map. That's just that's just north of the airport. For some reason, I can't remember that area right now, but there's a charge tower right outside there. I can't remember all the charge tower locations, but those are the main ones that I can remember. And I'm pretty sure those might actually be some of the only ones, because I don't really remember them anywhere else. But yeah. And also, a weird thing that they added to this season is a season quest this time around. So Loba has brought a quest that is called the Broken Ghost, and essentially it's her asking for the Legends' helps, except for Revenant, because she's trying to hide it from Revenant. And she's trying to get these 9 pieces for a mysterious relic. And this is going to happen for the entire season. Because like the last event is going to be 55 days from now. So it's actually probably going to happen about one of the last weeks before the next season comes out, which is very interesting, but also very annoying, because in order to unlock these, you have to get an Apex pack, or like an Apex treasure pack, every single day. And the reason that you have to get it every single day is because you can only get them once a day. And it resets 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, or at least for me it does. I don't know if for different people it unlocks at different times. I'd assume they wouldn't do that, but yeah, it's a very strange thing because they're very easy to find, and I think that's because since you only have the ability to get them once per day, they want to make sure that people can actually have access to them and access to the PvE, because they don't want to make it challenging for people to get to like do this quest line and stuff like that, which I understand. And I think it's nice that they're allowing more of the casual players to be able to still have this experience without absolutely grinding the game. Like, you can probably get a treasure pack within your first game almost every single day. That is if you don't die immediately. But they are fairly common. There are times that they feel rarer than other times, but pretty much every game, like at least every other game, I see them. So that is really nice in my opinion. One of my friends doesn't like that it's that accessible, but at the same time, I feel like it's just like it's not meant to be hard to get at all. It's meant to be completely accessible to anyone who wants to, as long as they play the game every here and there. Kind of a once a day thing, because there is also some cushion to it, like because they're unlocking basically once a week the mode that these treasure packs unlock, which I'll explain in a second. But essentially have the ability to play these modes once a week. Or a new one, I should say, unlocks once a week. I'm pretty sure you always have the ability to play it, as long as you own the treasure packs for it. But like the first one that just came out today, you needed 5 treasure packs for. And there was kind of a cushion there, since it was 2 days that you can miss, essentially, that you didn't have to get a treasure pack. But you can get a total of 45, since you need to get those 9 relics. Because it's basically, you need 5 for each event. And so that provides a good cushion. And that's also the reason why this episode is a day late, is because it just came out today. And it's the thing that unlocked was a PvE game mode. And it's not that good in my opinion. I think it has a lot of potential for it. because it's very interesting because essentially for this PvE, and if you don't want spoilers to the PvE, then don't listen, but it is very short. Essentially, you drop just outside of one of the tunnels that's up by artillery. You drop on the northernmost tunnel. And the ring is kind of closed in, so you don't really have the chance to go really anywhere else. And you do have a time limit to do this. And essentially, you'll be attacked by the animals that you might have seen in Titanfall 2 campaign. Those kind of, I honestly don't know how to describe them. The dog-like creatures that will chase you around and have really good agility. And as you go, it technically gets harder, but it's really, really easy to do still. But essentially, you find the relic, you have to defend it for a moment, and then you have to get to an evac ship. So you don't have any PvP whatsoever. It's just PvE against these things. And the first ones you come across don't do a lot of damage, but they take quite a bit of damage. Still not that much, honestly. It's about one person's health. One legend's health, that is. And then you have some new ones which only take 25 damage, so a quarter of the normal health. So basically one shot by most things that you'll be able to get. But they will do more damage. And the things that you start off with a thermite grenade, a P2020, and the Mozambique. And eventually you'll be able to find, well, for one thing, you'll be able to find the hammer point rounds for them. There's just a ton of loot in this, so it's really easy to find these hammer point things for the P2020 and the Mozambique. And then as you get further up, you'll find R99s and Mastiffs instead, which makes your day just a little easier. Actually makes your day a lot easier because then you're completely unstoppable, basically. But you can find better armor. Those are the only 4 guns you'll ever get, though, at least this time around. It was very easy and it was very short, and a lot of people are hoping that the next ones, they just progressively get harder and harder. But I'm pretty sure there's also supposed to be voice lines, but I think it glitched out for me. But honestly, I kind of wish I just had released this yesterday, because there is no point in waiting for this PvE event, in my opinion. But yeah. So once again, you have the season pass, or you have the battle pass for this season. And there are some pretty good skins this season. You start off with 3 legend skins, and then also a legendary Hemlock skin. And they all look very good. And then obviously we get some more XP boosts, load screens, what are they called? Charms, even more skins even, and some more Apex packs as well. And you've also got the next ranked series as well. So I don't think anything has really changed at all. I think it stays with the same thing as the trios or duos does, where you're able to have where it's I can't remember what they said for the rotation. I think the rotation for the 2 maps are going to be the same as they were last season, which I'm pretty sure was every 12 hours or something like that. But it does seem to match because we've been playing primarily ranked and it's only been Kings Canyon. So I'm pretty sure the 2 of them are connected with kind of how they are, which I don't think they were last season. I think last season sometimes it was Kings Canyon and sometimes it was Worlds. Sometimes it was Kings Canyon for one and World's Edge for the other, and sometimes they were matched up. But don't take me on for that for sure, because they updated that in the middle of the season, and I didn't play near the end of the season, so I didn't really know much about that season besides what was at the beginning of it. But they've also added a reconnect feature, which is really nice because now you won't get penalized for accidentally exiting the game. But you will not be able to reconnect to the game if you use Alt F4 or if you do dashboarding. And dashboarding is essentially like where you quit out of the game, and so is Alt F4. It's just depending on whether you're on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, anything like that. But if you do it on purpose, then you're not going to be able to reconnect at all. But if your game just regularly crashes, then you'll be able to rejoin the game perfectly fine. Well, at least for the most part, you'll be able to rejoin perfectly fine. But this is really nice for us ranked players, because now we don't get penalized for our games crashing. And sure, the game didn't crash as much before, but now the game crashes a lot. So it's really nice that they actually added this feature, especially this season, because I haven't crashed too much, but my one friend has crashed quite a bit. And then at least everyone in my group has crashed at least 3 times, which is frustrating. So it's fairly common, and it's fairly annoying as well. But you're usually able to get back into the game before you get to whatever area you're dropping to, which is very nice, because it basically kicks you out of the game right as you're entering it. So you will get a random legend, but at least you won't be completely gone from the game, which is really nice. They also added something that I think is fairly cool, which is something that they call conditional legend chatter. And so basically this is under like certain like groups of people, so like pairings, I guess is the best word to use. You'll get different dialogue than what you usually would. So like for Revenant, Revenant and Loba, she doesn't say thank you at all, like to him ever. And I think he even has one where if Loba becomes kill leader, then Revenant says that he always has 2 over her, which is mommy and daddy, which is very effed up. But thank you, Respawn, because that is amazing. But yeah, so now the different pairings with each other, they'll have different things, so that way they don't not make sense anymore, if that does make sense. Because like there was some weird lines sometimes where it's just, I mean, they would make funny moments because like Pathfinder is very ecstatic, but Caustic is not at all. So Caustic might say something a little bit weird or very dark or something like that, and then Pathfinder would just be like, "You're welcome," but they don't really do that as much anymore. Those moments were very funny. But yeah, it's kind of cool to go into games with different legends in your group and hearing these new voice lines, because now they don't feel as repetitive anymore. Unless you're playing with the same exact legends for your entire squad, then that would make sense. But I want to mention that they basically made a new legend this season as well. And people will understand me if they've already heard about this change, but Mirage. Mirage is a completely different character now, because his passive ability of Now You See Me is his passive ability. Like Mirage will basically, when he goes down, he'll get cloaked and his Mirage clone will spawn. And it so that is just the same thing. That thing is the exact same. But if you are using the respawn beacon or reviving a teammate, that means that he is cloaked. So, and that includes the teammate as well if they're reviving the teammate. So it makes him much better for reviving people or respawning people, because I mean he goes completely invisible. Not completely invisible, obviously there's always a slight shimmer, but most people are not going to catch that when they come up. And then he also has basically a new tactical ability, because the decoys now last longer. They last for 60 seconds, which I'm pretty sure I've seen them last for longer than that, actually, so I don't think that they're telling the truth about that. But if you use it, it'll do the exact same thing it did before. It'll do whatever your action was in a straight line direction to wherever you set it to go. Except for now, if you press another button, whatever you bind it to, then you're able to actually take control of the Mirage clone, and the Mirage clone will do exactly what you do. So if you look left, it looks left. If you crouch, it crouches. If you aim down sights, it'll aim down sights. And the only thing I don't think it does is switch weapons. I think that stays consistent, that it'll only have one weapon. But now it makes it a lot easier to fool people. I've seen so many more people fooled by my or my teammates' clones than ever before, because they look so much more realistic, because they look exactly like Mirage, and they look exactly like player movements, because they are player movements just mimicked, which is really cool, and it makes him a lot more powerful than he used to be. Because before it wasn't entirely obvious, but it was pretty obvious whether or not something was a Mirage clone, and a lot of people playing Mirage probably didn't even use his clone all that much. But yeah, it's really powerful. And his ultimate is even more powerful than his tactical ability, and is so powerful now. It's just like, basically it automatically mimics your movement now. So if you're running and you activate the ability, then if you are running and you start running left, then all of your Mirage clones will start turning left. Or if you turn right, they'll all start turning right. And so if you do this out in the open while people are shooting at you, they will get very confused, especially if you activate it. Instead of still going straight ahead, you turn right instead. Because basically you have about a 2-second period of time. Actually, probably more like a second period of time where you actually go invisible. But then after that moment, you will become visible again. And then all of the Mirage clones will start taking action with you. So basically, it gives you that chance to get to the edge of their ring that they spawn around you before they start moving with you. And this makes it very powerful in the fact that it's completely, like, sometimes you're able to see it because, like, all the other Mirage clones are hitting rocks and one is, like, running up a staircase. But most of the time, it's a lucky shot that gets you killed. Or just a couple seconds of them trying to figure out which one it is, or someone just absolutely spraying through all of them until they hit you. But it makes him a lot more powerful, and it makes them a lot better for team playing, because now instead of no one shooting the clones that he spawned and just waiting for him to come back, people are going to be shooting all of these clones and constantly revealing their position. Which makes it a lot better if you're still playing with your teammates and you're not the last one alive. But yeah, so a couple other legends that got some kind of buffs or nerfs to them. You've got Bloodhound, where his sonar detection now is 4 seconds instead of 3 seconds, and it's decreased cooldown from 35 seconds to 25 seconds, which is a lot better than it used to be. It's a lot more powerful, but it is a lot more annoying for Bloodhound, for people who play Bloodhound who are randoms in the game and will set it off every time that they get it. Oh my gosh, it is so much more annoying now. It honestly kind of pisses me off. But then you also have Crypto, where he has his drone, which can now ping banners while in the drone, to warn teammates of nearby squads. I'm pretty sure this is something that they were originally going to put in for Crypto, but they decided against it for whatever reason. But they also buffed Lifeline, where the bin ratio, so like the special bins that she has where on the map where it gives extra med supplies, the bin ratio is now up 20% from what it used to be around the map, which is really nice, as Lifeline, that is, because they also nerfed the things that she gets from her care package recently. And they've also removed the knockdown shields from the secret compartment as well. So with those nerfs, whether that was from previous seasons or from this season, they buffed her up for the bin ratios, which is pretty nice. And then you also have Caustic, which friendly gas no longer slows down teammates. oh my gosh, can I tell you how amazing this is? Like, our team doesn't really play Caustic that much. Like, we mainly play Caustic if we have challenges for him, but it's still so much better now from when we have played Caustic, because it's like, it still feels... Caustic Gas has always, to me, felt more disadvantaged towards having lower mobility and sight than it was taking damage. So having this removed from the teammates, like having the debuffs removed from the teammates when they run through the gas, makes Caustic so much more powerful, and I feel like he can now be used as intended before. Because obviously before it was only Caustic who could push people inside of the Nox grenades, but now Caustic can actually be used how I feel like he was originally designed, which is Nox canister or Nox grenade goes off and everyone pushes, which makes him a lot better of a trap operator. And also, Caustic traps won't be triggered through doors or through walls anymore, which is really nice. You actually have to get inside of its radius with a clear, not a clear view, but within a clear, I guess, path is the best way to say it, for the actual Caustic trap to go off. So it makes it a lot nicer. But also a lot worse, because one thing that was nice was that you could walk up to a door to set up a Caustic trap if there was one on the other side. But now as well, it doesn't take only running past a door to set it off. So there's two sides to that, and I think the fact that they took it away is a bit weighs out the good more than it did the bad. So yeah. Now Octane as well, his jump pad or his launch pad or whatever you want to call it, has been reduced to 60 seconds from 90 seconds, which is a lot nicer than it was before. And I think it allows him to be as mobile as they intended him to be in the first place, and also makes him more on the same level as most of the other legends in the game, since Octane is a fairly passive when it comes to his utility, because once again, like, Octane doesn't have any directly offensive stuff. It's kind of a just get to the next location quicker, whether that is by jumping on the launch pad or sticking himself with the syringe. But now that the launch pad is there and it is more accessible, I feel like his main purpose has been given, I guess, more chance to appear itself, I guess, is probably the best way I can put it. And Gibraltar's Dome Shield, which is very powerful. It's only 6 seconds difference, but his Dome Shield is now 12 seconds instead of 18 seconds, which is very powerful for Gibraltar. And I think this was because the other season they nerfed his ultimate to not do as much damage. So I think this increase, or I guess decrease in the time, makes Gibraltar a lot better than what he was before. Because there was a good period of time where people didn't like playing Gibraltar, because his like bombardment that he had, I don't remember what it's called, was not nearly as effective as it used to be. But now he is a lot better, and a lot nicer, and I'm sure people will start picking him up more again if they realize that his Dome Shield has been reduced in time-wise. I think it would still be wise to, I guess, I don't know. I guess it would be wise to upgrade his damage still on his ultimate, but I think now with this Dome Shield, it is fairly decent now. Like, it's on the same level as most of the legends, but I'm not sure. I would have to play him more to really get a feeling for that. But Pathfinder as well has had I think he's the only one who's had a nerf. Pathfinder's had a pretty big nerf where his grappling hook has now been increased in time from 15 seconds to 35 seconds. So that's a 20-second difference. So think about that 6-second difference for the Dome Shield and how powerful that is, and then relate that to the grappling hook being increased to 35 seconds. And now this is to match Loba's teleportation ability, which is also 35 seconds. So I think they're trying to limit that enhanced movement and quick movement to 35 seconds. But the only thing that confuses me is that Octane's ability is not like that at all. So that's the one thing that kind of intrigues me about that. And I think that's because Octane's a lot easier to hit than Pathfinder is when he is, flinging himself away. And then obviously Loba doesn't actually have to travel. She just instantly disappears. So I think that might be the reason. But at the same time, I feel like 25 seconds would have even been a pretty big nerf to Pathfinder. And I feel like that's something that they should have tried out first before they nerfed him by 20 seconds. Because I've got a feeling that same thing with Gibraltar, where his bombardment was nerfed and then they buffed his shield. I've got a feeling that one of Pathfinder's abilities is going to be buffed after this season, because that is a hard nerf on Pathfinder. It doesn't make him nearly as offensive as a character as it used to be, or even as good. Now he's more of a passive aggressive type legend than like that Loba is right now. And I think that's what they were trying to do, but at the same time, that's also pissed off a lot of people. And I think part of that as well is because so many people picked Pathfinder. Pathfinder probably had one of the highest pick rates in the game, especially in ranked play and pro league play. So I think they wanted to take it down to make other legends more used during those two things, which kind of annoys me. And I don't like that they did that at all. Because it feels like it is for that reason. At the same time, I feel like they maybe should have nerfed it time-wise, but I don't think they should have nerfed it 20 seconds. So there's that. They've also changed how some weapons work. So for one thing, they nerfed the Mastiff and buffed the Peacekeeper. And the reason this is because they switched out. So the Mastiff is now a regular weapon you can find, while the Peacekeeper is a gold weapon you can find in care packages. So of course that means reduced ammo, but that also means that an instant precision choke is on the Peacekeeper, which is really nice. Not to mention the best shotgun bolt that there can be, which reduces the spread of the shotgun. And then you can also get some of the new fully kitted gold weapons that you can find around the map, which is the longbow DMR that has come along with the old skull-piercing rifling that used to be in the game but was then switched out for the hammer point rounds. And hammer point rounds have now been taken out of the game, so no more R3 or flatline snipers anymore. But yeah, so you can find a fully kitted longbow DMR with the skull piercer rifling on it. And then you can also find a fully kitted Hemlock, which is amazing. The fully kitted Spitfire, EVA 8, and also the RE45. All of these are very good gold weapons. I'm actually not so sure about the RE45. And the Spitfire sight is the 1 to 2 times, which I know is very liked, but also unliked sight in the game. But honestly, that goes for most sights in the game. So I think the only one that's universally liked is the 2 times. And probably the 1 time, since it's basically the same as the 2 times, just not zoomed in at all. But yeah, Spitfire has that 1 to 2 times sight, which might lure some people away from actually taking the golden Spitfire. I know it kind of lures me away because I really do not like the 1 to 2 times. But then again, I'm also trying to get used to the other sights in the game. But yeah. So for Mastiff and Peacekeeper, they for the Mastiff, they reduced the damage to 13 per pellet damage, that is. The headshot multiplier has also been severely reduced from 2 times to 1.25 times. And then they've also reduced the fire rate, not that much. And they've also increased the amount of ammo from 4 to 6. And for the Peacekeeper, they reduced the rechamber time from 1.2 to 0.9 seconds, which is very nice. And then they've also reduced the reload times as well for about 0.2 seconds. So that's not that great. But it's still an increase either way. The Peacekeeper is already very powerful, so they didn't actually change that much. The main thing that they changed was that they tightened the bullet spread pattern even more, which makes the better bolt plus the precision choke really powerful on it. You can hit all pellets within probably a wingman shot type span, because heavy bullets are technically have a bigger hitbox than light ammo bullets do. But yeah, they've also changed a few things, like a lot of people think that the Havoc vertical recoil has been because you've got the vertical recoil and the horizontal recoil has increased a lot, and a lot of people notice it, but a lot of people don't notice it. So that's one thing I kind of wanted to point out. I don't really notice a difference at all when I'm firing it. And I don't know if that's just because I'm one of those people who used the Havoc still. Sadly, they still have not brought back the turbocharger, and that's because the Devotion is still a care package weapon. But yeah, they also reduced the headshot damage for both the longbow and the wingmans, and with the new Skull Piercer rifling. Not to mention they already did a crap ton of damage when it came to headshots. It wasn't by much though. Like for the headshot scale for the longbow, it was only by 0.05, and then for the wingman, it was by 0.1. But they did add the Skull Piercer, which makes their stuff go up by about 0.5 or 0.4 for the longbow, and then 0.25 for the wingman, which kind of annoys me that for the longbow it does more than the wingman, but what are you going to do about it? Both of them are still a lot better now with the headshots. But yeah, they also changed how gold armor works, which kind of annoys me because I don't like the new system. Instead of it being a fast use type of thing, where instead of a med pack taking like 5 seconds to use, it took 2.5 seconds, or like the Phoenix kit taking 10 seconds, it took 5 seconds. Instead, they made it so that way it only increases syringes and cells by 1 bar. So essentially, instead of syringes and cells only upgrading you 25% of your armor, I should say 25 of your armor or your health, because you have the Evo shield, so that wouldn't be quite 25%. It only upgrades 25, but with this gold armor on, it would heal you up 50 instead. So that kind of lures people away from taking up med kits and batteries, which kind of annoys me. And then it also makes it so that way Phoenix kits don't get any buff whatsoever. And I think that was because fast use was really powerful. But at the same time, this new gold armor is just not worth it at all. Like, now I'd much rather have the red Evo shield, a full red Evo shield, than I would have a gold shield. And honestly, I wouldn't even bother going out of my way to get a gold shield anymore from a purple shield. It's honestly not that much better. You don't notice it that much in battle, because most of the time when you're healing, it's when you're either in a good enough break to use a med kit or a battery, or you're done with the fight, so you can just take all the time you need to for healing. So most of the time it's not really applicable, it doesn't feel like, but yeah. But those are all of the intended changes for it. One big change that a lot of people are frustrated about, and PC has basically completely gone off the radar now because of this change, and that was that the hit registration is absolutely terrible right now. So is server connection, like I mentioned earlier. Like right now, it's a lot more common for people not to connect to matches right off the bat. And not to mention that more servers are being laggy than they used to be. And I honestly don't know what the cause of this is, but another huge issue right now is hit registration. A lot of people feel like 25 to 50% of their shots are actually missing people. And I feel like 25% is more accurate, but for people who have a worse connection to the internet, this is actually severely increased to around 50%, which makes it a lot harder for people who were just able to scrape by playing before to now making it completely client-side towards the other person's favor and making no hit registration even possible. So it's really frustrating right now. And everyone really hopes they fix it. I'm pretty sure console right now is down about 20 to 30% of its players, but PC basically only has 20 to 30% of its players remaining, because controllers have now completely taken over the game, because controllers actually make it more likely for you to hit someone and stay on target with someone than it is for PC to use a mouse and stay on target and hit someone. So I honestly don't know what you did to your game, Respawn, but everyone really hopes you fix it soon because we all love you, but you're kind of making it feel like Rainbow Six Siege right now. And like, if I'm going to make this a comparison, then it would definitely be a comparison to Rainbow Six Siege, which is really sad because Rainbow Six Siege has had their game out for 5 years and still hasn't done anything about their issues. So please don't become Rainbow Six Siege. Please fix your stuff, even if it's by mid-season. I think everyone's hoping that it's not by mid-season because that would still be very bad and you would not be getting a lot of your players back. But if it's that, then I'd still be happy. Just don't make it by next season. I don't want to wait another 14, 15 weeks, however long it is, for you to come out with an update that fixes the game. But yeah, that's what I have to say. Thank you guys for listening. If you want to support this podcast, or if you want to support our streams, YouTube channels, anything like that, make sure you check out our Patreon. You'll be able to get early access to Q&As. You'd also be able to get access to bonus episodes as well. So yeah, definitely make sure you sign up to that. But besides that, game on.
Find AFKast on Instagram and Twitter, @AFCommunity, for any updates on future podcast episodes. If you want to join the community Discord, find the link in the description or on the website, afcommunity.com.